Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman of the Action Network. I am live from our Tommy John home studio, and I'm joined, as always. I'm not really in our home studio. I'm in our Action Network studio, but it is a Tommy John studio. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
And I am in my Tommy John studio. Thank you, Tommy John.
I feel like I was going to let that one go, or I was going to start over, and then you started to laugh, and so I just owned it. My brother. It's
Yeah.
good to see you.
Another
Big
day
episode
closer,
today.
brother.
One day closer. Today is a big episode. It's our Super Bowl Trends episode with our favorite director of research and favorites mainstay, the man who signs jerseys at our live events, Evan Abrams. We'll bring him on in a second. Next Tuesday, we've got Chris Raybon and Sean Kerner on to discuss their favorite props. And then Thursday, we will, of course, nail down and discuss our best bets with Brandon Anderson, who crushed it all season long on the Sunday episode of the Action Network pod with Evan. His hot reads were always two bets that I religiously made. We're going to give out our foxhole, our Tommy John big balls, Simon's biggest bets. We'll play Scooch Roulette, all that jazz. Simon, I'll get to the whole idea that there's a sea of money out there next week. For now, we got to focus on the trends. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. And now, new Bet365 customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code FAVORITES, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right, we're going to skip sharp calls this week as well. We did a little bit of it on Tuesday. We'll dig in more when we're closer to the game a week from today. First, let's bring in Evan Abrams, Director of Research. He's got all the trends, all the data, everything that we rely on so much during the season. Evan is going to lay it out for us in one big palette. Let's go, brother. Give me your first best trend.
Well, first of all, Chad, hi, how are you?
Oh, hi.
This one panders directly to you, though. So we started off with our biggest entree.
By the way, there's only one person who likes pandering more than me. I'm not going to make it a political show, but we all know who that is.
Well, yeah, we're here to kind of tease you a little bit because this is the one you've been really looking for. So only betting the best teams is something you kind of talk about all the time. This year, you're talking about it with the Chiefs and the Eagles, which is a ticket you had in the preseason. Them meeting in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting thing. And I think it says a little bit more about the current state of the NFL. Let's call it the last decade. So Chad talked a lot about taking the strategy of all 12-1 teams or shorter in terms of Super Bowl favorites and taking a round robin approach. So I spoke with Matt and basically we dived into this. So I just want to start there and say, if you're feeling bold, and every August for the last 10 years, you bet every single combination of teams at 12-1 or shorter to win. Basically parlayed all the conference title odds combos. In that span, it's won 4 times in 67 total combinations. Now that would be this year's Chiefs and Eagles, Chiefs Niners, Chiefs Bucks, and Pats Rams. That's the 4 times it's hit. Now of the 67 total combos, we've had 4 winners, so we've had 63 losers. At 1 unit per bet, the 4 winners paid about 84 units, minus the 63 losers. You'd be up about 21 units doing this round robin strategy last decade. Now, what if you weren't feeling so bold? What about just straight, flat betting every 12-1 team or shorter? So over the last decade, that's 56 total teams, so 56 bets. It's won 9 times, including this year, and it's lost 47 times. So with KC or Philly pending, the 8 winners paid out 65 units, minus the 47 losing bets. If you did this blind, you'd be up about 18 units holding the Philly and KC tickets. Now, for what it's worth as well, and this is just obviously more about the current state of the NFL. 2014, which is 1 year back of this sample size, New England plus 650 won it all. 2013, Seattle 8-1 won it all. Now 2012 is where we get a string of long shots, starting with Baltimore, who won at 18-1. But basically, since that 2013 year, we have consistently seen the Brady's, the Mahomes, and just the favorites every single year. Chad, so your strategy so far, so good.
Well, really, Evan, I can only claim that it's your strategy because I basically just did what you told me to do. Because I believe the stat is, and now it's 11 of the past 12 seasons, the teams who had odds of 12-1 or less were in the Super Bowl. They were the matchup.
No, so it's the Super Bowl champion. A bunch of those years, you had the other team in the mix. So only 4 times last decade have both teams actually fit your trend, where both were 12-1 or shorter in the Super Bowl odds. And we basically had to parlay their conference odds. Does that make sense? Because you're basically taking every team that's 12-1 or shorter to win the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And then you're taking their conference odds, parlaying them together, and basically getting a ticket. Where yours was like 28-1, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this one, I believe, was like 27-1 using these odds. But basically, you'd be around those units. But truthfully, I mean, I'm curious what Simon thinks, like, because everyone loves these long shots. And basically, it hasn't hit up 1 year in the past 12 or 13 years in the NFL. And this is a 1 game sample when you're not even dealing with a series. It's honestly a little bit crazy.
Yeah, in my view, I think Evan will agree with this, is I take long shots to hedge, and I've missed the two
Yes.
best ones in the last 4 or 5 years. I missed on the Bengals 150-1, and I obviously missed on the Commanders this year at 151. That's a position, right? That's where you want to go. You want to take those type of bets. You know, this a great one this upcoming year. People are gonna fucking hate us, Chad, for saying it. Guess who's 100-1 right now, or 150-1, I should say? Panthers. So you think they can make the next step? They get the right guys. That's the type of team you got to do. You got to do it on a team that no one believes in. The Joe Burrow one, that was a flukish one, right? He's coming off a knee injury after his rookie year. The Commanders one, obviously, no one saw coming, right? I didn't see too many people flashing their 151 tickets they had. I know that one guy had was it Circa? I forget what book it was. It was basically bet 2K to win 500K on the Commanders. Didn't come through. I'm sure that pro hedged it out. But yeah, what Evan's telling you right now is the league has gotten, not, we want to say stale, but it kind of has, right? It's the top dogs. And even coming this year, Chad was going through his list, and I was like, I wouldn't put Houston on that one, right? I remember saying to Chad, I was like, don't do Houston. Stay away from that one. I just don't think they have the pieces. And I think I also gave him bad advice too. I said I wouldn't do the Lions coming to this year. I thought there was too much bad juju after they blew that lead with Goff the year before the 49ers. Got very lucky that one worked out, because for a minute there, midway through the season, I was like, I just cost Chad a ton of money. The Lions are a juggernaut. So I'm with you on that, Evan. I would love to hear what you have on Patrick Mahomes. I actually gave out a trend I thought was a good one that I was wrong on. My man Evan helped me out. I thought Mahomes was 15-0 on dome games. He is 14-1 in dome games. So still pretty
big
insane.
Difference.
Huge
big,
difference.
Big difference.
I know. We gotta be truthful though, and correct ourselves. 14-1 Mahomes in dome games in his career. Pretty insane.
Absolutely insane. And yeah, these are the stats to me when you talk about Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And I was talking about this before we even went live here. They feel all made up. Like, this legit feels like you put that stat out there where someone's like 25-2 and everyone, thinks you're making it up. It's just ridiculous. So let me just kind of go through some of these. In January, February, Mahomes has played 18 games at home or on a neutral field. He's 16-2 straight up. His losses are against Burrow and Brady. If you throw in November and December, he's 44-6 straight up. Just the playoffs, Mahomes has been an underdog or a favorite under a field goal 8 times. He's 8-0 straight up and ATS in those games. Now, when you talk about on the field success and basically these games where maybe it's gone back and forth a little bit, Mahomes has trailed in the fourth quarter or overtime 9 total playoff games. He's won 6, forced overtime in 2 of those games. Mahomes has played 20 games in the playoffs. He's 17-3 straight up, 85%. Minimum 10 games in the playoff starts. That win percentage is second best since 1950, behind just Bart Starr, who was 9-1, just 10 playoff games.
And I'll remind, as I did on Tuesday, because I think Simon gave this out on Tuesday. Bart Starr is the only quarterback to go 3 straight because remember he had an NFL championship and then they won those first 2 Super Bowls. So that's the company he's keeping on that one. It's
Yeah,
insane.
just trophies, trophy names at this point. It's ridiculous. He's winning Hallis because, he's meeting Hallis. It's stupid. Let's look at his entire career away from home. Mahomes has started 26 games away from home as either an underdog or a favorite of 3 points or less. 21, 4, and 1 against the spread, 84% in those games. I'll say that one again because that's actually ridiculous. Entire career away from home, 26 games away from home as an underdog or a favorite of 3 or less, 21, 4, and 1, 84%. And
Jesus
then
Christ. Simon, we are just so setting ourselves up to be crushingly humiliated. Like it's like we are not the people who lean into stats like these when it is the higher profile quarterback and the favorite. It's just not who we are. We are the people who can't go 3 weeks without mentioning the Carolina Panthers, even when the Panthers haven't played in a month. Like the fact that we have invested the way we have on Patrick Mahomes is just teeing us up to be on the wrong side. I just got to, I have to say that out loud. Do you feel I am now mushing us? Are you with me when you hear these things? Like when I hear these things, it makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't make me feel better about my position.
No, I only worry about you mushing regular season. Playoff, I don't think you can mush it. There's too much going on in the playoffs for Chad's mush. But no, we talked about like Evan said on the top of the show. These stats don't sound real when you talk about Mahomes because we've never seen it before, and it's what we keep talking about. The models don't get it, right? Computer models can't get it because it doesn't sound real what he does. And it's the same thing with Brady. Like you're getting a once in a lifetime generational talent that just breaks all the rules, all the trends, and yeah, just hearing these numbers, even like even though he told us these don't sound real, but they're real, they still don't sound real, right? The fact that he is just reading off all these stats where it's 24, 21 and 4, 8 and 0, 16 and 2. It's like, holy shit, man. This kid is just so incredible. 29 years old too. Only 29.
That one away from home is as an underdog is absurd.
Yeah.
he's the Grim Reaper, and everyone kind of talks about it in these situations. But when you're winning like that, neutral and away, and even his losses, and it's weird. You look at it; some of them are at home. They're just eggs sometimes during the regular season. When he goes away from home, he becomes a killer, and that's why those records seem so crazy. I told this to Simon, and okay, so he's 5-0 neutral field, which we get. I mean, the Super Bowls plus he's played there in other situations, but the thing that's crazy about it is 2018, and this is the stat that kind of blows me away. So since 2018, enter in the fourth quarter or overtime, down 1 possession, 1 to 8 points. Chiefs have had 12 drives. They've scored on 11 of them. 11 of 12 drives, down 1 score. They've scored 11 times out of 12 drives. 2018 in the playoffs. All other teams are like 5 of 11, 3 of 9, 2 of 9. I mean, it's just he's doing things even when trailing. That's just absolutely ridiculous. So that's my Mahomes
But
stats.
that's why you bet with him is
Yeah.
because like you have to because of that exact scenario. We say it all the time. Announcers say it. It's become cliche, but it's true. At the end of the game, do you want to be on Patrick Mahomes or against Patrick Mahomes if he has the ball in his hand and they need to score to win? That's it. That's how you're betting this game. You know what I mean? It is absurd. I can't say it enough.
And that was definitely part of the analysis against Buffalo. I mean, to be fair, a lot else happened in that game, but in the end, I mean, he was stone cold. And the other one we can talk about with Mahomes, but also has to do with Andy Reid, is basically rest. I mean, we know how good Andy Reid is, but the combo together is actually pretty crazy, and it's another stat which just feels made up. But during the season, Mahomes has played 34 games on extended rest since 2019. So that's basically 8 days or more. So it's not like a Sunday to Sunday. It would be more than that. He's won 30 of those 34 games straight up. So 30-4 losses to Brady, Matt Ryan, Jalen Hurts, and Aiden O'Connell. Again, one Jalen Hurts, which is funny, but 30-4, just absolutely stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So let me
Yeah.
let me keep. Yeah, it's crazy. Let me flip the page here and go into something else because there are other angles to this game other than Mahomes.
No,
So
there's not. But hold on.
yeah. What do you got? What do you got?
Well, Matt Mitchell has some very important information he wants me to share with our listeners, which is our Bet 365 Super Bowl prop contest is still accepting submissions. If you want to see your custom bet on Bet 365, email your top Super Bowl prop ideas to podcasts. There's an S at the end of that, podcasts at actionnetwork.com. You must adhere to state gaming commission rules, which basically means every part of the bet has to be settled on the field of play, on the field, in the box score. The winning submissions often have a clever name like the Broctopus or the Millennium Falcon. That's from the Matt Ryan Super Bowl. Winner gets an Action Network prize, a chance to come onto the show, talk to me and Simon about it. The pick will go live on the Bet 365 website. Submissions are open until Thursday. Podcasts at actionnetwork.com. Matt Mitchell, is that today, Thursday, or a week from today, Thursday?
That is today, Thursday.
That is today.
This is your final warning. Get them in here.
Submissions must be in today. All right, Evan, you're so anxious. What is another trend you want to get into that, by the way, you have one job. Make me and Simon feel better. So don't make me feel bad.
Well, okay, so some of this information, I'm just a man who delivers. All right. I don't fully love everything, but I think some of the numbers on some of these are interesting. So let's give you one trend and let's see your thoughts on it. Because I think you and I, especially in all the shows that you and I have done together, sample size is something that's important of a lot of these. So last Sunday, the Eagles rolled Washington and the Chiefs had a close win against Buffalo. So the question is there anything we can glean from that? So the Eagles scored 55 points in the conference championship, the most in that round in NFL history. Only two other teams have scored more than 45 points in a conference championship. Bills did it in 91, then lost the Super Bowl. Panthers did it in 2016, then also lost the Super Bowl. So 10 total teams have scored 40 plus points in a conference championship game. They're 3-7 in the Super Bowl. So another one, and I'll add on top of it, and then I'll get your thought, which is Eagles beat the Commanders by 32 points. Teams win by double digits in a conference championship round, facing a team who did not. 3-6 straight up and against the spread Super Bowl since 2000. Failing to cover by 9.5 points per game, which would tell you they're probably a bigger favorite in that spot, which I could look back and look. But if you're winning by double digits and then you're a underdog in the game, that probably doesn't happen often. But to me, it does probably speak on a little bit of competition. So I'll get your thoughts on that and then we can kind of move on. But both of those trends kind of telling you that the conference championship is a little bit of a hold on, wait before you act quick.
Yeah, Simon, you go ahead.
I was say I agree with it. Like just even not knowing those trends, just the thinking of it, it's like how often do we see a team play their best game of the year and then totally have a letdown the following game, right? It's just one game you go from everything's going perfectly well, everything's moving smoothly, you're getting turnovers, you're scoring tons of touchdowns, not kicking field goals, and then the next week everything feels harder, right? Like it, my buddy who I went to the book with, he was on Washington. He turns to me after that first drive that Washington had, he said, was exactly what Brady was saying. Everything felt like it was so much harder on that first drive than it was against Detroit. They had to earn every yard than it was against Detroit. And that's how football can be, right? You have the right matchup with the right team, it can be easy. And once it feels easy and you have confidence, it's the opposite for the other team, right? They're losing the confidence and they see how hard it is to stop you. That's to me what really stands up there was the Eagles are coming off their easiest game, in my opinion, I've ever seen them play, right? I've never seen them dominate that game. Obviously, football hasn't easy. It's the most points ever scored in a conference championship game. So I think that's what Evan's kind of telling you people. It's like Eagles just had the best game of their life. You expect them to have a letdown game. And then going against a Mahomes team, they're just straight as an arrow. Same old Mahomes, winning by 3, close game, won in the fourth quarter. That wasn't their best game, right? That was just another Mahomes, Andy Reid game. So that's what I'm definitely taking away from what Evan's telling us there.
Yeah, I also take away from it during the regular season, it's almost like an auto fade. on the team that wins by, 4+ touchdowns,
Yeah.
you immediately want to look in the other direction. Now, again, to Evan's
Unless it's
point,
Detroit during the regular
right,
season.
right, exactly. And to Evan's point, normally that team the next week is a huge favorite. They're not an underdog. So
True.
there's a little bit of a difference here. But to me, it actually speaks to that there is an opportunity. This team is at the top of the market. I wonder if this game opens with the Chiefs as even bigger favorites. Maybe they are 2-point favorites if the Eagles don't crush the Commanders the way they do, especially because the Commanders were the public side in that game. So the people who were betting on the Commanders are going to see the Eagles as being even better than they might have believed they were. That, you might even be getting half a point of value from a bookmaker point of view on the Chiefs right now.
Yeah, speaking of the Eagles, do you have any trends about them after the bye week, Ev?
Oh man. So this one's just strange. And I think a little bit of momentum has something to do with this one, but let me lay it out. So the Chiefs had a bye week entering the playoffs. The Eagles didn't, playing in the wild card round. How much impact has the bye been even this late into the playoffs, entering the Super Bowl, and obviously been playing for 2+ weeks already? In the Super Bowl era, teams that had a bye entering the playoffs facing a team who did play in the wild card game or who did not have a bye, 4-12 straight up, 2-13-1 against the spread, which would be very, very bad for the bye week Chiefs in that situation. I think the thing you can only really glean from this is that like taking that bye doesn't give you as much momentum, because we talk about momentum entering a Super Bowl a lot. But to me, this one just feels like some weird noise. I don't know what to make of it.
Feels like weird noise. It feels like there shouldn't be a momentum factor because both teams are getting 2 weeks of rest. And,
Yeah,
it, I don't know. It's not a huge sample set, but it's the only
no.
one. It's the only one that we have. I don't know that the next 26 times this happens, it won't be flipped,
Yeah, but
right?
to make sense of it, in my view of it, is football is all about rhythm and timing. So the Chiefs here have played what, 2 games with their starters now, going to be for a month and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that does add up to it where, that is a big deal that you have a week off, play 2 games, and you have another week off. So that definitely is going to be a part of it, right? The team's just not in rhythm, not in sync. But what Chad just mentioned here is, Mahomes, they're always in rhythm, right? It just, when you watch him play, even last year against the 49ers, he was in a rhythm for that whole first half. Once he got a rhythm in that game, it totally flipped the switch. Once he gets going, I don't think they punted the rest of the game, right? Once he got going against the 49ers defense. So that to me, if that makes sense when you break it down like that, yeah, these teams come out of rhythm. They're not, not ready for that game speed because they've just been practicing against themselves and not going full speed. But we talk all the time. Mahomes, if anyone's going to go against that trend, it's he's definitely got it back in that spot.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
one feels sorry. That one feels, I don't know. I'm not buying it. And I'm not buying it because I don't want to buy it. Like I want the confirmation bias. I'm buying it. It just doesn't feel like a thing yet. Doesn't feel like we know enough.
Yeah, the 4-12 throws me off. The 2-13-1 could have been something to do with the point spread, but 4-12 kind of confirms it's not. So little noisy for me. Don't know what to make of it. I like the next one.
Hold
But
on. Hold on.
I know you got stuff to do here.
We
I
got
know
to
you got
pay
stuff to
bills,
do.
Evan. We
I know
got to
you do.
pay the freaking bills. Simon, as you may remember, back in 1993, the most indelible image of Super Bowl 27 was captured long after the game was out of reach with 5 minutes to go. And as Dallas Cowboys up 5 touchdowns, Leon Lett picked up a fumble and began to run. But right before he scored, Buffalo receiver Don Beebe and his never say die Western New York attitude chased him down 64 yards to knock the ball loose for a touchback. Some claim it was Leon's showboating near the end zone that cost him his chance for glory. But true ballers know, true ballers like Simon and I know the real reason he was bogged down by the scratchy, inferior underwear of the 1990s. Luckily, here in the distant future, our friends at Tommy John have ended this decades-long crisis. Tommy John makes the most comfortable underwear, shirts, and casual essentials for the men and women of the future, helping you extend your 5-touchdown lead over inferior lifestyles, cruising into the end zone of comfort with as much showboating flair as you desire. Simon, why will you be wearing more Tommy John in 2025?
Because comfort is king.
Right now, you can shop TommyJohn.com/favorites and get 25% off your first order. Save 25% at TommyJohn.com/favorites. That's TommyJohn.com/favorites. Let's just give Matt Mitchell huzzah. They get better every week. They're little short story gems.
Never know where you're going with them.
Never, dude. This is the joy. I don't know where I'm going with them either. I am finding it out as I read it. Literally, I don't know what's going to happen next. This is the beauty of working with Matt Mitchell. He is a creative powerhouse. Speaking of powerhouse, Evan, tell me something about the defensive coordinator for the Eagles who's keeping Chiefs bettors and the Chiefs up at night, Vic Fangio.
And you're right, Matt is a wordsmith, so you got to give him that. But talking about Fangio for a second here, I think this is there's a bunch of different ways to look at this. So obviously, defensive coordinator, Eagles, but in this situation, facing Mahomes, he's done that 8 times in his career. So he did it 6 times with the Broncos. He did it twice with the Dolphins. Now, Mahomes is 8-0 in those games, straight up, 6-2 against the spread. Mahomes has 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, 64% completion percentage. Feels a little low if I'm just telling you those numbers in terms of the 10 touchdowns in just 8 games. But I kind of looked a little bit deeper on this one because I think this story is going to be out there a lot. So 2 of his lowest 10 passing yard games in the regular season have come versus Fangio. Granted, Denver's offense scored 15 points in those 2 games, so didn't really put up too much of a fight. Passing yards after catch, which important in this game, 1st and 4th lowest career for Mahomes in regular season against that Fangio defense in those 8 games. Bad throw percentage. So that is percentage of off-target throws per pass attempt. He's had 21 games at 23% or higher, 3 versus Fangio. Of 20 negative EPA games in his career, 2 have come versus Fangio defenses, and also 2 of his top 10 worst EPA games versus Fangio defenses. 6 of 8 games versus Fangio, Mahomes had 20% pressure percentage, which is a times pressured per dropback. So I think Mahomes is great. He wins a ton of games. I think the 8-0 makes sense. I think the 6-2 makes sense. He's putting up some points. But overall, I think last time they met against Miami, he gave him a bunch of cover 0, which screwed with him a little bit. I think he's going to give him different blitzes. I think Mahomes wins lots of games. I think the data is actually a bit of you'll see the 8-0, but I think there's a tiny bit of worry there. But that's what I've looked at going through it. That's what I take from it.
Thank you, Evan. I needed to hear that because I was diving into that. When I saw those numbers you had, I was like, oh my God, is this a bad matchup? Because on paper, what you just said makes sense to me, where it's like, this should be the perfect defense for Mahomes. You're only rushing 4 and you're giving him exotic looks, which that's the only way to beat this guy, right? If you don't have a Max Crosby on your team, you need to have a really strong front 4 because we've seen that even the Raiders, when they beat them, that's why they beat them, right? That front 4 gets pressure. So that's what the Eagles need to do here. And, that really backs up what I thought coming into this. And, let's think about this for a second. If this is the only way to beat them, I need those numbers to come true, what you just said, Evan. I need Mahomes to have a bad game. You basically need the offense of the Eagles to show up. If they can basically put up what we just talked about, over 15, 16, 17 points, if they get in the 20-point range, 25 points, there is a chance they could beat this team because Mahomes, like I said, coming into this, I thought this would be an under game because I just can't see Mahomes putting up 30 points in back-to-back weeks. Like I thought last week, we've talked coming into this. We thought the Bills had a weak defense, right? They've had injuries. We know they had $70 million dead cap, so they weren't spending on defense. They just had a lot of weaknesses on that defense. So it makes sense that Mahomes put up 32, his highest scoring game the whole year. You're giving me some confidence, Evan. I needed to hear that from Vic because I was worried when I saw that trend that he was 8-0 against Fang's defenses.
So what's interesting to me here is I'd love to know how often these games were played on extra rest or off of a bye, because I do think we've seen through your stats and through the years, no one is better at game planning with extra time than Andy Reid, right?
Well, he said it was divisional. He said it was Denver. So that you can count that as a bye, Chad, just because that means they prep in the offseason for that defense, which I agree with you. It's like you could throw that into it, but that to me is pretty interesting that he was like, they had extended time to prep against it, and Fang's defense was still pretty damn good for being on not that great of a Denver defense.
See, well, now I was starting to rationalize why I could feel good, and now I feel bad again.
Shit.
But
Well,
maybe go ahead.
The one I did look up because I felt like the other part of this, forgetting Fangio for a second, I wanted to look at because the Eagles' pass defense has been something we've been discussing all year, and it's kind of everywhere. So, and this helps your Mahomes case on one angle, but Mahomes versus pass defenses, 200 yards allowed or less pass defense. He's 23-3 in his career, 12 straight wins. His last loss was October 2022 against Buffalo. In November or later, he's 12-0 straight up career. So the great pass defense thing, and yeah, he's 12-0 in every stat I'm going to give. But the fact that the 200 yards or less on pass defense and the 12-0 and 12-0 or later November tells me it's a mature pass defense, right? Like this isn't a September pass defense that's played 3 games. I mean, this is a defense that's been a few games into the season and feels the stat more heavy to me. So absurd, but.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, and that tells me a lot about their pregame game planning, which might lead to us liking Dr. Nick's pass Patrick Mahomes under 36.5 pass attempts even more. But it also speaks to what we talked about on Tuesday, Simon, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and their ability to adjust in game. There's just nobody better at it, right? They can see it and like do it series to series, almost play to play, because they're so in tune and so good at figuring out what the other team is doing and how to master the opposition. It's look, it's a great defense. There's no rationalizing that it'll be giving everyone fits, but it's what makes it so much more interesting, right?
Yeah, it makes me think too of Josh Allen. Like Evan had some amazing stats when Josh Allen plays really good defenses. His game gets even better. He's even better, and same goes for Mahomes. It's just two absolute unicorns in the sport where, you know, most normal guys are going to struggle against great defenses, but not these guys. And I would love if we could play a round of Remember These Guys.
This is, I mean, as a guy who was born in the late 80s, I like sitting down and just naming old players. It's what I do for a living.
And by late 80s,
it's my most fun.
89, December 89th.
No, 87. I'm in the middle there. I'm in the middle there. But basically, I was trying to do some research on Saquon Barkley and like how someone like that, based off of his season, could possibly do in a Super Bowl, or how many guys to put up his numbers have been to a Super Bowl. So Eagles are the 11th team to enter a Super Bowl with a 1,500 plus yard regular season rusher, and actually the first since Sean Alexander in 2005 and Corey Dillon in 2004. So those teams with those 1,500 yard rushers are actually 8-2 in the Super Bowl. The two losses are Sean Alexander in 2005, Jamal Anderson 1998. Sirianni, and the thing that I thought was interesting of those 10 teams is they're adding a rusher like Saquon Barkley, but they've also had experience in the Super Bowl. So what I looked at was Sirianni and Hurts have been there, and they added Barkley. How many times of those 10 rushers before Barkley did they have a coach and quarterback with Super Bowl experience? So 2004, Corey Dillon, they had been there. It was Belichick and Brady. 2004, they won the Super Bowl. 1998, it was Shanahan and Elway. They had Terrell Davis. They won the year prior. They won the Super Bowl. 1988, it was Roger Craig. They had Walsh on Montana. They had both won twice prior to that. They also won the Super Bowl. So those teams that had been there with that rusher, actually 3-0. Now they're 8-2 overall, so I'm not telling you something crazy, but I was trying to come up with some sort of comp for just, we've been here before, we've gone through the prep, plus we also have this guy who's having an outstanding season, tends to turn out pretty well in that spot. So that's the way I kind of looked at it, and trying to calculate like how this team adding this player who's been there would do. Very, very small numbers. And we know that even the craziest thing is Saquon's prop, right? Which is like 112, 114 or so this week. the question is we haven't seen someone run for 120 yards in a Super Bowl since Michael Pittman in 2003. So, I mean, either way, getting to that number or higher is, it's Terrell Davis territory in 98. So I guess we're going to have to see
Seriously,
how it
that's how
does.
long it's been since a guy ran for that many yards?
Yeah,
I remember, as an old person, Evan, you might remember that Super Bowls used to be dominated by running backs.
I know.
Before your time in the early 80s, we're talking John Riggins, Marcus Allen. Those were the freaking days. And now you're telling me it's 22 years since a running back ran for 120 yards? That is something.
It is, but it does make sense too, though, because you think most teams are going to have a dominant, great running back, probably going to have a bad quarterback, right? Derrick Henry, he's with Tannehill. I mean, CJ2K, that Tennessee team, they had nothing. That Tennessee team had nothing. Adrian Peterson, go back and look through his career, all those incredible running seasons. He just never had a quarterback. So we don't want to blame the running backs here. Even Marshawn Lynch, right? Those incredible years, they were still a pass-happy offense, right, with Russ. So it does make sense when you dive into it. You're right. Shows what kind of unicorn situation this is, where you have the best offensive line, the best running back, and then a quarterback that's above average. So I definitely makes sense you dive into it. But we joke that, the running backs have had a rebirth these last couple of years. Like, they were dead, right? The 2010s to 2020, the running back position just felt like it was nothing. Getting no money, no respect. Now it's definitely going the other way, right? That extra cap money, teams are using it on these legit running backs. And we saw it this year. Derrick Henry, Saquon, major differences to the teams they joined.
Ugh, poor Joe Shine and the New York Giants. Those clips of him hearing from that one lowly scout assistant, whatever, in his office saying, "Are we sure no one's going to pay Saquon?" And everyone being like, "Nah, no one's going to pay him." And then him having the painful conversation with Saquon that they're going to let him test the market. Like, oh my God,
Chad, not even that. His daughter told him, or daughter or son told him
His
to
son.
draft Jaden Daniels.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, he was like,
It
you
gets
literally get
even
this
worse.
job once in your lifetime. Why don't you go get the best player? It's like, holy shit, this kid is smarter than half of the organizations in all of football.
Gotta outthink it. That's amazing. Want to make extra money daily from your sports betting? Simon knows I'm always trying to find ways to take sports betting to the next level. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Edge Boost, the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit. With the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you receive up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. That's free money back in your pocket for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit and will never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there are absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. Stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet today to learn more and sign up. That's edgeboost.bet. All right. Evan, it's called the most efficient market of the year for a reason. Explain.
Unbelievable. Sides and totals almost dead even in the Super Bowl. It's actually some of the most ridiculous things ever. 58 total Super Bowls to date. Favorites 27, 29, and 2 against the spread. There was no total in Super Bowl one. I can make one up, but I'm not going to. Since then, overs 28, 28, and 1. Absolutely dead even in Super Bowl history. In the last 21 games, the over is 10 and 11. Can't get much more efficient than that. And the public opinion really is no help. Sides getting the majority of tickets, 11 and 10 straight up in ATS in the Super Bowl since 2004. In the one Super Bowl, Mahomes was not the public side. He won and covered versus the Eagles 2 years ago. But truthfully, it's just dead even. It's the craziest thing. Talk about the most efficient market ever.
All right, last one before we get out of here. We do have a coaching rematch. What does that portend for the Eagles and the Chiefs?
Yeah, 5th coaching rematch in Super Bowl history, all time. Head coach who won the first meeting, straight up, on the second meeting in all 4 instances.
Wow.
Obviously, we just did this with Reed and Shanahan, but it's been done with Coughlin and Belichick, Jimmy Johnson and Marv Levy. Sorry, Matt Mitchell, and Chuck Noll and Tom Landry. And the craziest thing is Chiefs-Eagles marks just the second time in NFL history. Same teams have met in the Super Bowl in twice in a 3-year stretch. Bills and Cowboys 92 to 93. So, quick rematch here, I think, is really fun because we just saw this. We add a few, ingredients to the pie. We kind of go from there.
How does that make you feel, Simon?
I mean, obviously not great, but this is, to me, the perfect blend of this Eagles team is totally different than they were the first time around. You go back and look, the Eagles leading rusher with Jalen Hurts with 70 yards. They're giving the ball to Miles Sanders. Now we have a younger, healthier, better offensive line, and we have Saquon Barkley. So it is interesting going back. I mean, I painfully had to do it yesterday. I had to go back and watch that game, that Super Bowl. I did not watch the final 2 minutes. I already know what happens, but just rewatching it, obviously the defense is totally different now. Like, it's really noticeable how different the style is compared to Gannon and this Fangs defense, where it was basically just being very careful, very soft, playing zone the entire game, where this new Eagles team, super aggressive, have the cornerbacks to play man. And, yeah, obviously, when you break it down, the coaching mismatch, me and Chatter gave our opinion. We think the Chiefs have a huge advantage in Andy Reid and Spags. So, yeah, it doesn't shock me that fact that these coaches, especially the Coughlin one, he had the Patriots number. Like, he had the secret sauce, right? That the 4 rushers, smart with the ball on offense, very boring football. It worked. Like, that style that Giants played, it was the perfect match for that Patriots team. And, I mean, it is crazy to think. They lost 3 Super Bowls, and 2 of them were to a Giants team that were, a wild card team, Ev? So, yeah, it is pretty insane. We haven't had nothing fluky like that, and like Evan said, since, 2012. So, once again, it's been pretty boring. 1 and 2 seeds every year, pretty much.
True story. I had drinks with Marv Levy and his wife. I don't think I ever told Matt Mitchell this, at the Super Bowl 1 year after he had retired. When I was at Sports Illustrated, I fact-checked, that was my first job at SI, fact-checked a story about Marv Levy. I think Rick Tellender, who was my hero, mentor, idol, wrote the story. Then I had to, as a fact checker, you got to call the subject and basically check every fact in the story, sometimes really intimate details. And so I had that conversation with Marv Levy, and we were both going to be at the Super Bowl. Forget where it was. The Bills weren't in it. And me and him and his wife had a drink, and it was lovely. Couldn't have been a nicer guy. Matt Mitchell, are you happy I told that story?
Harvard master's degree holder, Marv Levy, one of America's greatest treasures, and who will be 100 years old during the end of training camp this year. Marv, if you're listening, you're a national treasure. I love you.
Class act all the way. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365, and now new Bet365 customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code Favorites, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. We'll return with our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, to talk Super Bowl props. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars. Say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.